Bem-vindos a mais episódio do Don't Panic, It's Organic, da nossa playlist Hanging with the Pros. Nessa semana, uma grande amiga, Juíza Internacional de Search Awards, Judith Lewis. I'm going to introduce her in English now because so she understands what we're talking about here, guys. She's an international speaker, trainer, and expert online marketing consultant, Search Award judge, and chocolate judge. And also a very good friend that the industry provided to me. We've been chatting about since 2018, I think, Judith, in St. Petersburg, where we met.
Exactly,
so,
yeah.
Please introduce yourself to our audience here in Brazil. Who's Judith? What does she do? How did she come into the industry?
Oh my gosh. How did I come into the industry? That's like 25 years ago. There are some people who I got online in 1985, 86. So I've been online longer than some SEO professionals have been alive. So that's pretty, that's a long time. I'm that old. I got into SEO because I have a degree. Yeah. Ancient, no, experienced. I got into search marketing because I was playing around with domains and ranking well for a company that I was working with. I had started my own e-commerce site. No, it doesn't exist anymore, but it was really good. I mean, it was doing so well that it supported both my husband, who was a programmer, and myself. So I really got very good at the old SEO, hidden text and links and shit like that. Oh, excuse my language. And things like that over the years. But search is, I think it's one of those industries that attracts people who have an engineering and testing mindset. The kind of people who want to see how something works and understand why it works that way, break it, put it back together again, and then do it again.
Right.
That's pretty much how I got into search, is 20 some odd years ago, 24, 25 years ago, when I was running an online shop. I needed to understand how to get people to the site. And that meant understanding search. We just didn't know it had a name back then. You just did what you needed to do. It was crazy. And then I, just kept going. I do a lot of B2B. I've done some B2C over the years, mainly e-commerce, but not a huge amount. Mainly I specialize in B2B. It's a lot more challenging because you're dealing with search volumes that are quite low, specialist informational bits, and it means that you have to know what you're talking about to optimize. Right. So pharmaceuticals I've done gambling. And I've worked in the porn industry. That was pre-SEO, but I was in the marketing and sales department for pornography. So I've done all the big industries in my life.
That's a big one, isn't it? Pornography, I would say. Would you say is the biggest one you work with?
Pornography is probably the biggest. Next to pharmaceuticals and gambling, pornography is the biggest. In gambling, I did some bingo, which is very big in the UK, and I did some sports book. And with pharmaceuticals, I didn't do anything illegal. It was all like, Novartis and Bayer and things like that. So the pharmaceutical side of things was legal, but that's huge because a lot of it was over the counter. And so I think I did some with Reckitt Benckiser. I did a lot with Novartis, but that's depressing because it was things like congestive heart failure medication and things like that. Like, it's not an industry. You don't want to do pharmaceuticals. It really does disappoint you in life. So the big three, the poker, pills, and porn, as we say. The 3 Ps of the industry. So I've done a lot, but I'm older. I'm older than a lot of people, so I've had time to do all this. I wouldn't expect somebody 5 years in the industry to have had that breadth of experience, especially if they've just kind of fallen into it. My degree is psychology, but I started programming back in the 80s. So, sorry. Back in the 80s when I was programming, I was the only girl in my lab.
Oh, there aren't many still in the industry, which is a shame, but I can imagine back in those days. So, early 90s, 80s kind of thing, yeah? So I can imagine at those times how many girls were in the in the community. It's interesting that you said the 3 P's. So forget about Kotler's 4 P's of marketing and focus on Judith's 3 P's of digital marketing. Poker,
Definitely.
pills, and what was that? Poker,
Porn.
pills? Porn.
Poker, pills, and porn.
Porn. You see, I'm married, so I forgot about porn.
Of course, it's just blanked.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. We can chat about that later. Oh, you're kind of like...
I have some recommendations that you asked for.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, dear. You kind of like answered one of my questions, but well, the first question I was going to ask, like, you've been in this industry since '96, and you've worked not just with SEO, with community, audience engagement, and SEO became your passion. You came across because you had a website and you had to deliver it. How did you used to work back then? How did you came across? Was it because it's pre-Google, right? It's not Google 98, if I'm not mistaken. How did search engine came to play into that, and then in SEO, I think?
Yeah, it was really difficult. So in the beginning, what we had to do is we had to somehow, and usually it was because you found one and that led to others, you had to somehow find websites that linked into yours. Now, don't forget, the web is not fast at this point, and it's not really overly graphical. 1996, there wasn't a lot of pictures on the internet. So there was a lot of text. I did a lot of line drawing kind of images because you couldn't have rich pictures. You know, you don't quite, I can't remember. I don't think we had GeoCities in 96. But we did, or Angel Fire, but we did have proto websites. So once you found one, often they would have links from inside of them to other websites. You've got the Open Directory project to help you find your way around the internet. But normally you find your way to a website, and then from there you find your way around. So, and back then it was doing exactly what we're doing now, asking for a link. So the reason we did it then was because otherwise people couldn't find you, because the search engines were really very poor quality. It was very difficult. You got a lot of spammers that were able to effectively spam the search engines by just having the dictionary on a page, hidden text that was a dictionary. You had to play the game early on. So early 97, when you're starting to get your fledgling search engines, you played the game, you hid text on the page, you made it small, you made it the same color as the background in order to be found. And you interlinked with other people. You had web rings, you had web link pages where you just listed people that were like you, and you had partnerships. So I was part of one of the earliest affiliate programs out there as well, where other websites and you would pass customers back and forth. So it was an interesting time, but it was very difficult. You couldn't sell online. So we had a downloadable order form where you would write down on the order form what it was that you wanted. It was mainly text, or you could mail a letter with a self-addressed stamped envelope and get a catalog back. So
oh, now definitely those guys that were born before you started working, they won't know what you're talking about here. Letters, stamps.
Yeah, it's what old people used to do.
Right. It's very interesting that you say that you kind of like were doing that same thing that Eric Ward was doing back then, with which I always talk about. Who came first, SEO or link building? Everybody says, oh, of course SEO, because link building. But actually doing the SEO kind of in your search marketing, let's say, or online marketing, if you will, at the time involved a lot of link building. Which leads to my question that all this time in the search or online industry or SEO industry, how much the SEO industry changed or evolved? Because from what you just said, seems that we went back to 1996 with all the link building that we want to do. How did you see these changes? Because did it evolve or changed? How would you put it?
Yeah, I think what happened was people wanted to get rich quick. We all want to get rich quick. We want a fast and easy way to do this sort of stuff. And we discovered early on that Google couldn't differentiate between a bad link and a good link. And what's happened is Google has invested over the years, because of people like me, a lot of money, like, millions in understanding language, because don't forget sentiment analysis. There was a time when if you had enough negative reviews, you actually ranked higher, not because of negativity being more valued, but because the number of mentions and the number of links meant that you ranked higher, because Google did not understand negative versus positive versus neutral sentiment. And it invested hundreds of thousands of dollars and PhDs, time of PhDs. So what they invested in their employment
and so on.
Yeah, they really, for years, they invested a lot of money in that in order to understand, so that they didn't reward negativity. And so where we are now is a huge evolution. I was writing a small piece for somebody named Nicholas Stott. She has an agency of she's been around 10 years with her agency. What's changed in 10 years? 10 years ago, June, we had caffeine. 10 years ago.
I remember that.
Was the revolution of caffeine, which sped up search results. Before then, we had Google Dances. We had all sorts of tumultuous craziness in search,
and so
but it was crap. Yeah, it was really bad. The quality of search results were horrible. But about a decade ago, we started this massive, fast evolution. We got Panda, we got Penguin, we got the Pigeon local results, we got Possum local pack, we got Mobilegeddon, which didn't actually have the kind of Armageddon effect that it purported. But since then, we've gone to mobile only index. We're almost there. March next year will be mobile only, according to Google. So we've massively, massively changed. Over the last 10 years, there has been a huge seismic shift in the way that Google has served up search results and what SEOs have had to do. Back in 15 years ago, we just spammed links. You just bought links by the bucket load and you ranked. You hid text on page 18 years ago and you ranked. It was fine. Google couldn't differentiate. You got into Open Directory Project, DMOZ, you ranked. There were all sorts of tricks that you could do and you ranked because there wasn't much out there. And then the spammers came in and started polluting, so to speak, the internet with lots of websites, and the domainers came in, built hundreds of domains, and I just found so I just found a 10,000 strong PBN because all of their sites are on the same Google AdSense ID. Well, the bulk of their sites are on the same Google AdSense ID, 8,500, something like that. I was like, really, guys? That's such an amateur mistake. But so I found this link network and I was like, oh, it's like the old days, because I was looking at the sites and there was like an Irish music one. There was one about math. And I was like, oh, these look like they're from like 2008. They're so old. It's like Angel Fire sites and GeoCity sites, but they've put them on a domain. And I think that's what happened. We got better at polluting the web and Google had to get better at ranking. So in the last 10 years, it's been a crazy roller coaster of you've got to stay up to date with Google, and Google's just been using deep learning and now machine learning to get better than SEOs. Right. So now we pull the levers we can, which includes link building, but content as well and technical.
Interesting your concept into that, because I was doing a chat with the other day with a few friends in a project that I have. And we were talking about that, and my reading to the past 10 years of Google updates, it's slightly different. It's like Google saw that we are always trying to game it. Yeah. And he said, what if we kind of like tell them what needs to be gained? Like site speed, user experience, good content, do good links. So my take on to Penguin, Pandas, Rank Brains, and so on, it's just like Google said, okay, these guys are always trying to do. So let's change the game now. Let's give them what they need to do, how they game it. And that forces to a better web, a faster web, a more accessible web in the sense of accessibility, better content. Obviously, we do push the limits still, because that's in our essence, isn't it, to do so. And that's, I think it's the same rate that you have, but from a different perspective. I think Google is forcing us to do the right thing to a certain extent.
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah, and having said that, Judith, in 2018, you were here at RD Summit in Florianopolis, and you gave a very interesting talk, to say the least, about link building. And I was there, and some people were just going like, what is she talking about? Is she really talking about buying links? Is she? And you had a very interesting methodology. Could you comment a little bit about it? Still work? How does it? Because it was, to say the least, I say it was for the audience. It sounded a bit controversial because there are lines of SEOs here. The majority goes, oh, you shouldn't buy links and you shouldn't do that. And you kind of like explain in detail about it. Do you still follow that same route? Does it work? Comment a little bit about that one, please.
Yeah, I think I buy links for good, not for evil. So I buy links in a different way than a lot of other people. So I don't just buy links. I don't look for a website and say, hey, I'll buy a sidebar link. A, I don't like sidebar links. They're useless. And B, I want to buy a link because there's a reason. So there's a piece of research that has been done, and I want to guarantee some coverage. So one of the things that I've done is I've bought PPC ads to help promote something that's been published. I've paid bloggers to write about it, but I always pay for an honest opinion. So one of my clients, we pay bloggers for their time. We don't pay for the link necessarily. What we're doing is we're saying, look, we want you to write about this product, this service, this research paper, whatever it is. We've just come out with a new product. We've just come out with this new piece of research. We've come out with 37 different ways you can improve your home life for both your spouse and your children during lockdown by simply following feng shui. Let's say this is a lie. I'm making this up on the fly. I have a little feng shui thing behind me that I can see on my board. So I've used that as my inspiration. So 37 things that you can do to improve your home life during lockdown by following feng shui principles. Now, it's easy because feng shui is all about functional space. It's all about making sure that you don't have what I have, which is a pile of stuff all around you. And you don't want to see beyond what you can see on the window here because it's a mess. But right. Feng shui is about no mess. And so that's really easy, right? But we sex it up a bit by saying 37 things that you can do to make your life better under lockdown, because that's something that's right now, by using feng shui. And they're like, really? Feng shui? What the heck? That's weird. So, it's easy. I can come up with 37 things. I have several books of feng shui. I can just open them to a random page, put them onto the article, and boom, I'm done. And then what I would do is I would outreach to bloggers and say, hey, I've just released this guide to 37 things you can do to improve your living space for your whole family under lockdown by following these feng shui principles. Now, you wouldn't normally write about this. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to compensate you for your time by paying for coverage. Now, it's important to me that you write this coverage in a way that is compelling and that will make people want to read the article on our site. I don't expect you to replicate the whole thing, maybe give 1 or 2 tips, and then write it in a way that they'll want to click through. And if they see it on your site, why not give them like a top of page, first paragraph link, just in case they don't want to go through the whole thing, but make it compelling to click. So something like, if you want to read all 37 tips, click here. Otherwise, here are my 3 favorites. And this is what I'm paying for, is I'm paying them not to put a link on their site for whatever reason. I'm saying, here is a compelling piece of research I've done. Here is why I think you should link to it from your site and how it will improve your readers' lives. Here's some free extra little bits that you could use on your site. And I'm compensating you for your time. So that's how I do link building. And that's why I buy links, is there has to be a reason. Now, I have had new product launches and things like that. I have done it where there's been no product launch and it's been about stopping smoking. So it was a product that would help you with this. And it's not necessarily a new product launch, but it was just because it was Stoptober. And in the UK, Stoptober is about stopping smoking. Or stopping drinking if it's October rather than September. We're always trying to give something up in the UK. We never do, but we always like to feel like we're making the effort. So it was around that, and that worked because it was timely. So I'm not just buying links like some people. I used to buy links in the past where I would just go, hey, I'd like 100 of these directory links. I want 10 articles, spun article links. and I'll do 2 press releases, and that's my order, please, Gareth. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
and now these days, these days I don't do that anymore.
Yeah. Actually, he might be next on the lineup for interviews here. Good one.
But yeah, so I used to do that. I did 100%, absolutely used to do that. And I've had a client take a penalty. But the way that I do now, the way that since Penguin, the way that I do link building is there has to be a reason, and we have to sell it to the blogger. And then we have to make sure that if the blogger or the journalist, even I'm currently doing some journalist outreach with one of my clients with a PR, there has to be a reason why they're going to write about it, let alone link back. And that's what I'm paying for. I'm paying for their time to write something that is timely, that is researched, that is inspiring, that has a hook, that evokes an emotion. So you need to have, if you've never read the book Contagious, read the book Contagious. It has amazing ideas for link building in it, but it's not a book about link building. It's a book about social media, but we can use it for link building. And that's how I buy links. So yes, controversial, I buy links. Absolutely 100% I buy links, but I buy it for good, and I buy it for a good reason.
With a good purpose around it as well. Yeah, that's interesting. How do you, on that line, how do you know how many links are good or will be enough for your project? And when you do that, when you approach the client or you get a new client, say, I want to work with Judith, would you give me a budget, or do you ask me for a budget to get those links? Or
generally I will, I'll tell you how much it's going to cost to get you the links, to get you the results you want. But if we think about it, there has to be a reason for people to link without you paying them. There has to be, otherwise you're shot before you even start. So there has to be a reason. So that research piece up front, that is not necessarily something that I would directly help with. I know people who can, but that would be something that would have to be done separately. I can help with ideation and help with ideas that I know journalists will enjoy, and especially what will resonate with them, but that has to be done first. And then we do the outreach piece. So once that research is complete, and that does take time, we do the outreach piece, and that's 6 weeks worth of work. So that's 6 weeks of my time, not every day, but it's 6 weeks of my time to corral the cats that are bloggers. So that's time. And then there's money. And I generally estimate anywhere from $50 to $1,000 a link. So it depends. $50 a link, you're getting low quality, so it better be an extremely good blogger. $1,000 a link, I've done that. I drove phenomenal amounts of traffic. It was one of the most valuable links I ever bought because we got the traffic we needed from that blogger. It was exactly the traffic we needed. Exactly. It couldn't have been better. And it was a well-spent $1,000. But I've spent like $250 on a link. And that blogger sent a tiny number of people, but 100% of them converted and bought stuff. And so more than paid back the money that we spent on her blog. And that's exactly what you should be buying links for. If you're buying links for an e-commerce site or a service, you should be making your money back on those links.
Right.
They should not just be going into the
place that will convert, right? No, it's not just the link for the sake of the link, because correct me if I'm wrong, Uncle Google does look at that figure, doesn't it? If that link is driving traffic or no, it does somehow analyzes those things to understand if that link is a good link or a natural link. What's your take into it? Does Google look into that or not?
They're doing an analysis, and the analysis is on the visible rendered page. So I had a blogger once who put a link on the blog for a client, and it looked exactly the same as text. Now it was a keyword rich anchor text, which I did not want, but anyway, but it wasn't underlined. It was no different color, no different anything. You would not have known the link was there unless somehow you looked at the source code and saw that there was a link. Google will discount the value of that link. Why? Because it can tell on the rendered page that it is unlikely to be clicked. So that's what Google's looking at. Exactly. If it's above the fold, if it's visible, and if there's a compelling reason, so bidirectional analysis, if there's a compelling reason for the people to click it, then yes, they'll give you value. If it's invisible, below the fold, bottom of the page, small font, hidden, etc. If it's just a dot, which I've seen, like just a period,
Pixel.
link networks.
a pixel, right?
Well, not a pixel, but like a dot, a period. If it's that, and I've seen that a lot, it's no value, and Google will devalue that link. So what it's doing is analyzing the rendered page and understanding it. Don't forget, they've just come out with passages. So they can understand fragments of the page, and they understand the language around the link, and they have for years. This is nothing new. So they understand what comes before and after the link. And if it's not relevant, if it's not likely to be clicked, reasonable surfer model, then they are not going to count anything for that link. So that blogger got dropped from any future campaigns because she refused to change it to a visible link. And at that point, I was like, right, well, I'm compensating you for your time, so I'm paying you, but we're just never going to use you again because you drove no traffic to the client because you can't see that it's a link. So, that's the way you play. Good. That's the way you play.
It's very interesting because we have the same approach. I talk a lot about, and for my campaigns and with my clients, about linkable assets. We always try to create that linkable asset. So then when we outreach or we compensate bloggers for their time, AKA buy links. I like that term now. I'm going to use it from now on. I'm compensating you for your time. I'm not buying links. I'm compensating you for your time, blogger or journalist. And it's a very interesting concept, but that doesn't matter. You could have all the money in the world, right, to buy links. But if you don't create that asset, that resource, there's no point in doing things, right? So I think in the end of the day, link building is still about creating value, generating value for people to either, if they link naturally, like a lot of people talk about, or link earning and stuff, because sometimes it does happen but you need to get the wheel spinning. Otherwise, people will know about your content and so on. So in the reasonable surfer model, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because it's also something that I've been talking a lot here, and people look at me and go, what is this guy talking about? In Brazil, obviously here. And I said, look, this is the probability of people clicking on your link. So we even do that when we do audits. We look at that for internal links, which does apply as well, right?
Absolutely.
So, I'm glad that you were sharing these ideas here, and I can validate some of my strategies with you, and hopefully people watch this video and now they will replicate these strategies, because that's the whole idea of these interviews or this chat that I have with you, with other guys. I had some interesting with Arnold. I mentioned to you, Arnold is just Arnold. He has his concept, his idea. That's very good, and this is what I want to share with the audience here. Judith, stepping away a little bit about the SEO side of things, or still on it, but you are judge on major search awards and leading judge and so on in search awards, something that we don't have here in Brazil still. But I really want to bring something down here, something for a later talk. How did you become a judge? Did you get invited, or how?
It's weird. It's a long time ago. But I am hoping, and I have asked about it. I am hoping that search awards will come to areas either of Brazil or larger to South America, but hopefully Brazil at least will get its own search awards soon.
Latin America. Yay.
Well, Latin America is huge though, because that includes Central and South, and that's massive. But you never know. It can happen. I have asked about it, and it might be happening.
We do deserve.
You absolutely do. I did say that, like with RD Summit down there, there's a huge conference. So, it could happen. You never know. But the way I got to be a judge was I was basically invited to the very first UK Search Awards, which was the first Search Awards, was for the UK. And I think there were about 8 or 10 of us. And we really scrutinized everything, and we worked very hard in a small room. And it was back during the days when payday loans were just taking off, and now they're dead. Short-lived industry, but people made a lot of money. And it was really one of those things that I got involved with because I could see that it would improve how the industry perceived itself and was perceived. So one of the things I'm passionate about is that search as an industry, not just paid, but also organic, it gets serious about itself, and that we have standards that we uphold so we can get insurance mainly, but also because we aren't snake oil salesmen. We're serious engineers. We work hard for our clients, and there'll always be bad apples, but we don't want to let them spoil the whole barrel, because there are bad apples in law. There are bad lawyers. There are bad accountants.
Everywhere.
They're bad everything. Everything has bad somethings. So there are always going to be bad SEOs. But what we want to do is elevate the entire industry so that those people stand out as being bad, and the rest of the industry stands out as being professional. So I got involved in search awards because of that. But I really love to see how far all the areas that have had search awards have come. Because if you look at the UK search awards that I was invited to judge way back 8 or 9 years ago now, and then you look at them then and to now, the industry has come on by leaps and bounds. So I'm hoping that's going to happen for the Middle East, North Africa region, for Australia, for the Nordics, for everywhere. I hope that, and South America. And I hope that all the areas that have search awards are inspired to do even better work as a result of knowing that they can compete against other people, and by winning the accolade of best SEO campaign or best use of search in travel, that they will be able to demonstrate tangibly by peers within the industry that they are the best.
Yeah, this is something we really need here, and the industry as a whole, because the other day I was reflecting about it, because here in Brazil, 10 years ago, more or less, 8 years ago, all the SEO agencies became full service agencies or inbound agencies. And we stuck to ourselves. No, we are SEOs and we're going to continue to be SEOs. And everybody, the ego in the industry is so big. And now they're seeing the importance again. And they're all coming back to it saying, oh, this is the new normal. You need to specialize in just one thing. I said, really? Oh, no, okay, yeah. And because, and there's the adjectives that they use. We are the best. We are the leading agency. And I said, who said that? And that's why we need it down here so badly. So to put the dots in the eyes for a lot of people, because as a joke, any posts or PowerPoints or keynotes accept anything. We need that validation. That said, what is the anatomy of a winning SEO project, Judith? What you guys look into it? I know you have different categories. I was looking at, for Hedgehog in the UK, I was looking at the search awards applying, and there's just about every single kind of category nowadays, which is good. Small budget, big budgets, and so on. But what constitute a winning project? What do you guys look for? Is it just rankings?
No, we look for ROI, first of all. So we actually look for value for money. And we look to make sure that the agency has delivered value for money. It was actually one of the categories I judged recently for one of the search awards, because I do them all. Because I've been doing it for 8 years now, and my own clients span different continents, and I've worked on French clients, I've worked on Spanish clients. I have a client right now that does both English and Spanish on their site. I've worked on all sorts of multilingual sites. I've worked on Asian clients, so I'm aware of different ways that they respond to the internet and to a web page. So everybody works in a different way, and I see across the world all the different ways that people approach things. But we look for, first and foremost, ROI, return on investment. has the money that has been spent wisely? And one of the entries actually didn't win because it hadn't spent money wisely. They threw a huge amount of money at it and they did not get good return on that spend. So we decided not to award because of that. So we are trying to look out not just for the best rankings or the best results. We're also trying to look at how they've spent the money that they were given by the client, whether they spent it responsibly or not. So that's important. But also the most important thing is that you make it easy for us to see why. Why should you win an award? And that is the one thing that a lot of entries fall down on. And sometimes my notes say, this could be award winning. There are hints in the data and in what has been written that this is amazing, but they failed to tell us what they did or what they were thinking or anything. It's just a bunch of bullet points and some marketing spiel. We need to be in there with you, like,
Right.
Saying, here are our objectives, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. Your objectives are your objectives. You're not going to change the world unless that is one of your objectives, and that's difficult to prove. Right. You're not going to change the world. Just do a bullet point and prove what you said you would do at the bottom. So objectives, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, results, bullet point, proof, bullet point, proof, bullet point, proof. That's it. That's all you need there. Target audience, that's where you have to start saying, right. So we identified that women aged 18 to 24 and men aged 16 to 32 would be interested in this product through our market research or our analytics research or whatever. We identified that it would be a local audience, that it would be a global audience, whatever. But you have to tell us what did you do? Why were you targeting these people? We thought our audience would be everybody in the world. Doesn't work. Even for Coca-Cola, it does not work. There's a target audience for Coca-Cola. There's a target audience for glasses. There's a target audience for Fitbits. There's a target audience for everything.
For everything, yeah.
So you have to tell us what your target audience is. Then the inspiration and creativity is where you bring us as judges into what you did and show us why you should win. And that is where you put all of your effort. And that is what makes an award-winning entry, is when your effort goes into showing us what your creativity was, what your process was, what your inspiration was. We researched the people who liked Harry Potter and determined that they were females aged 18 to 52 and males aged 32 to 46, and that they lived in the middle of England in a semi-detached house and typically earned this much. So we knew that they would be very interested in our new ice cream. You can make anything sexy and interesting, but you have to tell us as judges why. Why was this award winning? Now, there's a lot coming through now with COVID where people were like, yes, we did this much more work. And I work with a children's toy client, so I know what happened. You can't cloak good results around something like COVID unless you show us how you beat the industry. Show us as a judge, show us how you beat the industry average. So say, oh, look, this is how it went up for the industry and this is how it went up for the client. And so you show us how you've been different.
Right.
Yeah. So an award-winning entry inspires us as judges and we remember it.
You kind of like answer my next question, which would be tips to enter an award. But I'm going to tweak around a little bit. This year, correct me if I'm wrong, was the first year that we had the Global Search Awards. Yeah?
I think so. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And would you say like we had a friend that won everything, Bastian and PK, which is just like, okay, go good luck competing with them. But would you say global awards, if people like listening, agencies from Brazil, which there are some really interesting campaigns here, because modesty aside, we do one thing good here. With a low budget, we managed to do quite a bit, but obviously we need to show you, which you said, the entry, how you convince the details and comparison, and obviously data is very important. Would you say, could we look into it, like say next year? Do you think, what would you say could we do? Obviously it needs to be submitted in English, but would it be evaluated in the same level as a campaign in English? or yeah, it's say in English. Let's compare because most of the entries, I guess, are in English. Would data come to it, or how would you guys?
Yeah. So if you have screenshots of your data, and especially if it's Google Analytics or Google Ads or Search Console or whatever, or if you use SEMrush or Ahrefs or Search Metrics, any tool that we can recognize, screenshots from that help. So if you're having trouble explaining yourself, do that. If you are having trouble explaining yourself, enter in Portuguese. We will translate it locally in-house. We will do the translation. I've judged in French where the entry is coming in French. And so I read it in French and I evaluate it in French so that it's easy for the people who don't speak English to communicate what's important. So please don't feel, and worst comes to worst, if it comes in Portuguese, I'll use Google Translate and get the best gist. But the photos, the pictures are also going to help. Yeah, all the data. So the objectives and the results are the most important things for you to show that you blew away what the client was expecting. And especially if you get a client quote, that also helps to reinforce it. So the client said they did an amazing job. We gave them a target and they blew it away, that kind of thing. And in any language, we can figure that one out. Right. And really the target audience and the inspiration, the creativity section, those two sections are where you should be spending the most of your time. Target audience and methodology, that should be fairly dry. We're all professionals. Don't tell us that you decided to do this because in SEO we do this. And I've had entries like that. And I'm like, you know what? 24, 25, almost 25 years in the industry. I know how to do SEO. It's okay. You don't tell me that that's why you did it.
Yeah.
Tell me that you noticed that single mums between the ages of 16 and 32 tended to hang out at Brit Mums instead of Mumsnet because they got a better quality of help. And therefore, you decided to place your ads in context on that site instead of on the other site because of that finding. I've just made that up. I don't know that that's the truth.
Well, I would say like if, like for instance, you identify the different trending search behavior and you tackle that and so on, which is something that we've, like for instance, here in Brazil nowadays, it's going a bit tangent here, online gambling started to become quite popular. It's still not 100% legal. So what we're doing with online betting company that just entered Brazil, and we're doing a campaign where we do the research. There aren't many searches around. So how to bet on the Premier League or how to bet in La Liga or how to bet on the NFL, for instance. But I said to them, wait, let's do this. Oh, we shouldn't target these keywords because they don't have a high search volume. The industry is new. Not many people are searching for it. Give it a year. Let's work on it, positioning it. And when the wave comes of people searching for it, so I'm kind of like playing prediction here, which for me, I think it makes sense because there aren't many searches happening yet. So that would be a good entry, yeah? If I
absolutely.
So like we kind of like online gambling, we placed a bet a year ago that searches would go up, and it did. Would that make a good entry?
Well, I would say that you did your research because you noticed that in other countries, the searches for how to place a bet, how to do this, how to do that were quite high. And you knew that because it was a new industry, there would be a high volume of searches for this once it became legal. So in order to position yourselves in the right place with good information that was valid and not trying to trick people, you wrote these articles early on to ensure that when people did look, they got neutral, well-written, valid information rather than people who were just trying to take their money. And you knew that this is how it would happen because in other industries like, I don't know, construction, when construction suddenly becomes an industry in a country, all of the sudden everybody moves in, or you could use payday loans or something like that. When payday loans hit the UK, there were a lot of shady companies that tried to do very shady things and take people's money, or, well, give people money and then take a lot in interest. So you could say that that's what led you to write these information articles, and you managed the budget carefully, you positioned carefully, and you ensured that when the time came, you were there to take advantage of the search volume that increased. So that's the kind of thing that you would say. But I would say that one of the hallmarks of a really good entry is that there's a lot of data. It draws the judges in to explain why it's an award-winning entry, and it helps immerse us into the thinking of what was going on in your head when you picked how to bet on the Premier League. Like why the Premier League? Why not the Bundesliga? Why not some other league? Why not La Liga or whatever? Why did you pick Premier League? For instance, I'm just making it up.
Sense, yeah.
And then we can say, oh, wow. So they picked the Premier League because they knew that there would be more people who tried to do false advertising. So they positioned themselves to be better. Amazing. There was a company, I hope I'm not giving away anything here. I don't know if it's been awarded yet. Let's hope by the time this goes out, it has been. There was a company that wrote a guide on, I'm pretty sure, I was in an airport in Milan. It must have been awarded. There was a company that did a guide on, I think, mortgages. In Mexico, I might be giving way too much. And they revolutionized the industry because mortgages were so hard to get and there was no information there. And that's what they told us. They said mortgages were hard to get. There was no information available. So we wrote a guide to make it easy for people to navigate how to get a mortgage. And it wasn't just for us, it was for all banks, but it was associated with our bank, blah, blah, blah. So, we were drawn in. We didn't know that in Mexico it was difficult to get a mortgage and that the mortgage process was a nightmare. I didn't know that. I've worked in Latin American markets, but on pharmaceuticals, not on real estate. So to see that and to be drawn in and understand better what was going on, that helped us judge that. So even in the UK, you could say, let's say we're 5 years ago, you could say like a lot of the payday loan lenders, they're charging 2, 3, 4,000% APR. What we did is we created a guide to how to get a social loan where, you're borrowing money off of real people rather than a payday lender. And we did this so that they had an option that was only 5% APR rather than 4,000% APR. And we ensured that they could find it when they were at the worst point and they were pressured and they needed to find information fast. So that's the kind of thing where you're bringing us into the situation and what your thinking was and showing us why it's so revolutionary.
Results in a good strategy and a compelling entry. So that's the formula.
Yeah. And sometimes people get close, but they haven't drawn us in and explained to us why it's award-winning. We know SEO and we know PPC and we know social media. You don't have to tell us that. What you need to tell us is what is unique about your market and what led you to that strategy.
Yeah, don't come with that. Oh, because of Google Penguin, we are now doing it.
Yeah. We all know about Google Penguin and the new Google Search AI and things like that.
Interesting. Judith, it's been very nice talking with you. I could stay here all afternoon or evening in the UK, but we're coming up to our last part of these interviews where I have two little, I could call games. Yeah. The first one is pretty straightforward. A phrase. This is just the last bit of our interview, Judith. I normally do these little games, which is one, a phrase that's so important to you that you would tattoo on yourself. Motivating. A phrase that is,
a phrase that is so important to me.
Or motivating. Wow. Or motivating.
Do you know, the thing that I say more often than not is, wait, what? That's not really very motivating. But I would say that, I think one of the things that I would probably get tattooed on myself is if you don't love yourself, how are you ever going to love anyone else? So love yourself first, and then you can open your heart to other people. That's not really an SEO thing. That's just like a life thing. And also
SEO, that definitely not.
Yeah, let go of anger. That would be more of an SEO thing. Never hold on to anger, because that will only make you sick. Other people, a lot of other people, you let them hurt you. It's taken me a long time. It's taken me my entire life, 50 years, to figure this out. I now say to people, if they hate me, it doesn't impact my life at all. It doesn't. It doesn't hurt me. It doesn't do me any damage. It doesn't lose me any work. Let them hate me. It's okay. And if it's not okay, I know hitmen. So it's fine, really.
Good. That's good. Not a little bit threatening, but it's good. So just to end things here, Judith, the one word game. I'm going to give you a word and you give me the meaning for that you have it. It's a one word. Just in one word. So
to a woman that used to work in the porn industry, you're going to give one word.
Yes. SEO.
SEO, alcohol. It means alcohol. Lots and lots of alcohol. That's most of what SEO is.
Chocolate.
Well, a competition. I'm judging the Academy of Chocolate Awards right now. I just finished judging some wines, but now it's on to chocolate. Yeah. So they're shipping me a box of chocolate. As in a box of bars, 50 bars, I think. Jesus. I start off with. Yeah.
Whoa. And
a lot of judging.
Family?
I miss mine. Christmas, man. Yeah. I won't be home for Christmas because Canada closed its borders and my dad just had a pacemaker fitted. So I can't risk international travel when somebody on the plane might be naughty and be sick. And they might not know it, but if somebody's on the plane and sick, then I make my dad sick. So I can't go home for Christmas.
Oh, shame. Well, I won't have my family around as well. My mom is in Spain. So yeah, man, I'll be away from my grandparents because I just don't want to risk going to their houses. But yeah. Judith, it's been a pleasure. It was a nice time chatting with you, catching up and asking a few questions around judging that I never got around to. So thank you very much for your accepting the interview here with us. Hopefully the people here will appreciate that as well. And any final words before we leave?
Definitely enter the Search Awards, especially if it comes to South America or to Brazil or to Latin America in the first year, because the first year is the easiest year to win because we have the lowest number of entries. And also, the second year of the Global Search Awards will also be a really great year for Latin American companies in general. So Central America and South America to enter, because I think that there's a lot of really interesting things that are happening down there, especially what I've worked on. Obviously they're not entering, and pharmaceuticals, they never enter anything, but you can see that there's a lot of change happening in that area. And so I would definitely enter because I think that there are going to be some really compelling case studies that could win that could win a lot of things. Don't be put off by the fact that Bastian won everything. Bastian's had a lot of practice. So you get a lot of practice entering, you win a lot of things, but it's all about how you draw the judge in. So do enter, give yourself a chance and enter, because if you don't enter, you won't be shortlisted. And if you're not shortlisted, you can't win.
Definitely no. I'm never down or scared of. I like to compete. So yeah, especially because it's German and we are Brazilian. I need to get the 7-1 back somehow.
I was really surprised by how many he won. If I'd been on more panels, I might have said, maybe we could share the love. But he wrote, the work was amazing. The work that he did, I saw it. And it was phenomenal. I don't know if he'll ever release it as a case study, but if he does, you'll see how amazing that work was. It was stunning.
Yeah, he's definitely an inspiration and someone I look up to, like PKs and all their work in general. So yeah, we have to look up for the best. But Judith, thank you very much for your time. Hopefully these glitches that we had technically here won't affect anything. If not, I'll just give you a buzz. We'll record again. So yeah, thank you very much for your time. And it's been a pleasure. Hopefully sometime next year, we can meet again at an event, a few chocolates, a few beers, and yeah. So thank you very much for your time. Good.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.